Last time we were in this vault, I introduced you to a McKinsey man. Sharp suit, wire-rimmed glasses, brilliant mind. He walked into a Houston boardroom in 1990 with a single idea and turned a pipeline company into the largest corporate fraud in American history. Today, I want to introduce you to another McKinsey man. Different city, different decade, different result. This one didn't build an empire. He walked into one that was already dying, hemorrhaging $1 million a day, and was handed a scalpel and told to operate. The patient was 72 years old. The prognosis was terminal. Every analyst on earth was writing the obituary. In Texas, we have a saying, a drowning man doesn't need more water. He needs to drop what's weighing him down. They were wrong. I'm Cade Sterling. This is case number 4, the brick that almost broke. Let's look at the ledger. Strategy, a roadmap for dominance under uncertainty. The line between a calculated gamble and a slow-motion suicide. Victory is by design. Failure is by default. Before we talk about the near-death, we have to talk about the foundation. Because Lego didn't almost die because it was weak. It almost died because it forgot what made it strong. The year is 1932, Billund, Denmark. A carpenter named Ole Kirk Christiansen has lost most of his business to the Great Depression. He pivots to making wooden toys, small, affordable things for children. He names his company Lego, from the Danish phrase, leg God, play well. It's a modest beginning. A one-man workshop in a town so small it barely registers on a map. But Christiansen believed something that would define the company for the next 90 years. That a well-made toy was not a luxury. It was a necessity. In 1949, Lego produced its first plastic interlocking bricks, a British patent that Christiansen licensed and perfected. By 1958, the modern Lego brick was locked. The stud and tube coupling system, the geometry that made every brick compatible with every other brick, regardless of when or where it was made. That decision, to build a universal system rather than a single product, was the strategic masterstroke that built an empire. Think about what that means. A Lego brick made in 1958 connects perfectly to a brick made today. No other toy company on earth has ever achieved that kind of product continuity. It wasn't an accident. It was a philosophical commitment. The system is the product. Through the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, Lego expanded methodically. They entered the United States. They launched themed sets, town, castle, space. They opened Legoland in Billund in 1968. By 1990, Lego was the 6th largest toy company in the world, with distribution in more than 100 countries. And then the world changed. The 1990s brought something Lego had never faced before: digital entertainment, video games, the Sony PlayStation, the Nintendo 64. Children who had once spent hours on the living room floor building brick by brick were now sitting in front of glowing screens. Toy sales across the industry were under pressure. The question every toy company had to answer was the same: how do you compete with a screen? Lego's answer was, do everything. And that answer, well-intentioned, ambitious, and completely logical on paper, nearly destroyed them. Friction, the hidden operational tax that drains capital. The resistance encountered when a machine fights itself. Momentum is expensive. Drag is fatal. Let's open the vault on the friction point, because Lego's friction wasn't a competitor. It wasn't a disruptive technology. It wasn't even the video game industry, though that's the easy answer. Lego's friction point was complexity, and they built it themselves, brick by brick. Faced with the threat of digital entertainment in the mid-1990s, Lego's leadership made a decision that felt bold and visionary at the time. They would diversify, aggressively, completely, into everything. They launched Lego clothing, Lego watches, Lego books and magazines, a chain of Lego retail stores, a second theme park, then a third, a children's television network called Lego Media, video games, A line called Galador that barely resembled Lego at all, action figures with almost no brick-building component. A line called Jack Stone, a line called Clickets, aimed at girls, built around jewelry and accessories. In 1997, Lego had roughly 6,000 different brick elements in production. By 2004, that number had exploded to over 14,000. 14,000 individual components, each one requiring its own mold, its own manufacturing run, its own inventory management, its own supply chain. The complexity wasn't just strategic, it was operational. It was costing them a fortune to simply keep the lights on. Meanwhile, the core brick sets, the product that had built the company, were being neglected. The flagship city and castle lines were underfunded. The iconic simplicity that had made Lego revolutionary was being buried under an avalanche of licensed themes, gimmick products, and brand extensions. And the financial results were brutal. In 1998, Lego posted its first significant loss in company history. They restructured, they cut. And then, they did it again. More themes, more licenses. Star Wars in 1999, which was a genuine success but masked how badly everything else was performing. Harry Potter in 2001, Spider-Man, Batman. The licensed themes sold, but they required expensive royalty payments and created a dependency on external IP, content Lego didn't own and couldn't control. When a Harry Potter film cycle ended, Lego's Harry Potter sales collapsed. The strategy that was supposed to save them was creating a new addiction. The friction point here is what I call the overbuilt machine. When a company tries to be everything to everyone, it becomes nothing to anyone. Lego had taken the most elegantly simple product in toy history, a brick that connected to every other brick, and buried it under a mountain of complexity so enormous that by 2003, the company was structurally incapable of being profitable. $1 million a day, every day. The machine was consuming itself. The board knew something had to change. They just didn't know if anything could save it. Autopsy, a post-mortem exam to discover the cause of collapse, dissecting the exact moment the heart stopped beating. We look for the fracture in the foundation. In 2004, Lego's board made an unusual decision. They reached outside the founding family, for only the second time in the company's history, and handed the keys to a 35-year-old former McKinsey consultant named Jürgen Vig Knudstorp. He was not a toy man. He was not a visionary in the Steve Jobs sense. He was something rarer and, in that moment, more valuable. A diagnostician. A man who could look at a bleeding company and identify exactly where the wound was. Knudstorp's diagnosis was delivered in plain language. Lego, he said, was not losing because of video games. It was not losing because children had changed. It was losing because it had abandoned its core competency, the brick, and replaced it with complexity it could not afford to operate. His prescription was equally plain: cut everything that wasn't the brick, and cut it without sentiment. What followed was one of the most disciplined corporate restructurings in modern business history. Lego sold its theme parks to Merlin Entertainments. It shut down the clothing line, the watch line, the magazine division. It eliminated the Galador and Jack Stone and Clickets product lines entirely. It reduced its brick element count from 14,000 to 6,500 over 3 years, slashing manufacturing complexity in half. It outsourced logistics, it restructured its supply chain, it cut the workforce. And then, quietly, methodically, Knudstorp put the money back into the brick. New flagship city sets, new castle, new Technic. A renewed investment in the Lego system, the philosophy that every piece connects, that the system is the product, that the brick is enough. The results were not immediate, they were not dramatic, they were steady. In 2005, Lego returned to profitability. In 2006, revenue grew by double digits. By 2007, Lego was the fastest-growing toy company on Earth. By 2015, 11 years after the brink of bankruptcy, Lego had surpassed Mattel and Hasbro to become the most profitable toy company in the history of the industry. Not because they invented something new, because they remembered what they already had. The lesson of Lego is not about innovation. It is not about disruption. It is about the discipline to return to your core when everything else has failed, to pick up the one thing that always worked and trust it completely. The autopsy finding here is clean. Lego didn't survive because they were lucky. They survived because one man had the courage to make the most painful strategic decision in the company's history, to stop doing almost everything, and the wisdom to understand that simplicity, executed with absolute precision, is the most powerful strategy of all. They picked up a single brick and built it back from there. Lego, the brick that almost broke. I'm Cade Sterling. The Strategy Vault is closed for now. Next time on the Lone Star Report, we leave Denmark behind and come back home to America, to a story that hits differently than Blockbuster, differently than Enron, because this one you remember. You remember the jingle. You were a kid in there once. You remember what it felt like to walk through those doors. Toys R Us was not killed by Amazon. That's what they want you to believe. The truth is darker and more deliberate than that. In 2005, 3 private equity firms walked into the most beloved toy retailer in America and strapped $6.6 billion of debt to its back. Then they handed it the keys and walked away. Jeffrey the giraffe didn't die in a fair fight. He was loaded down until he couldn't stand. Toys R Us, the debt that killed Jeffrey. Case number 5. We're opening the vault. See you then.